Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on AM 650.
Good evening and welcome back to Boomer Life on AM 650 with your host, Simone Graywall. Today we are talking about seniors and loneliness. In studio with us for this segment is Leslie Jaworski representing Cori's Kitchen and Stong's Market. Now, Leslie, last month when you were here, we spoke about the challenges that people with dementia have from changing taste, loss of dexterity, confusion, simply not knowing what's in front of them or what they should do. Now, I remember you mentioned that it's still important to share a meal, whatever the challenges that seniors face, which obviously sounds easier than doing it. But you've brought some tips and ideas for us and are going to help us address some of the challenges. So what are some of the things to consider so sharing a meal can be a routine?
Well, and this does fit really well with the loneliness thing because it obviously helps. It's another activity you can do with one of the elders in your life, and it depends what their ability is. So I thought I would be practical today and talk about what it is like to try and do a meal in a nursing home or a complex care place where often the elder only has a bedroom. So there's different tiers of care, of course. There's one, there's assisted living, and then there's, and it goes right down. So usually with assisted living, there's a kitchen. That presents a whole other level of ability, but a bedroom, wow, there's not much to go on there.
No.
So I thought it might be useful to know because it's still something that I think is important. It's still something that you can do. So it's not something that I personally have to deal with. But my mom's in a care facility, in a complex care facility, but she has a kitchen, which makes my life a lot easier when we go to share a meal. And it also means she has a table and chairs, so we can do a whole setup. And I do feel that it's important. It's also something to do, because depending on their level of interaction, sometimes, and in the case of my mom, there isn't much coming forth.
And that's just what you kind of look forward to, those meals during the day. It's been routine when you were at home, sitting at the table, setting it up. So you kind of want that familiarity.
Yeah, and for us, we can do candles. Well, those ones with the battery operated, yeah, they're safe. We can do candles, and we can do a place setting and have things going on. And I'm always going to and fro with a box with my stuff in it. So I was really surprised to find a woman coming out of the elevator one day with a picnic hamper. And I knew just because of the floor that she'd come from that it was all bedrooms. So I did stop to ask her because really out of all the people that I see coming and going, I never see anybody with food. And that was clearly what she had going on. So she was more than happy to share her story. So I'm going to pass it on because it's full of all kinds of good information on how she handles doing food with her dad.
So what is she, so give us that, so she came in, she had the whole picnic spread. How did that all work? Share that with us.
Okay, so she had one of those picnic hampers, those soft insulated picnic hampers.
And again, is her father in a room where there's only a bed?
Yep.
Just a bed, okay.
Yeah, and so what she brought was the picnic hamper, and in the room she said she just there's a side table and a comfy chair, so she just put a tea towel out as a tablecloth, and this is a routine for her. It's something she does a couple times a week with her dad. She puts out the tablecloth, or what is really a tea towel, and then she puts the food out, like you said, picnic style. And her dad, depending on how good he is that day. Sometimes he's bedridden, sometimes he can get out of bed, but there is that, those hospital tables that fit over the beds.
Yeah, you can wheel those in.
Yeah. So she uses that in whatever configuration is required for the time, and she always puts a placemat on it. I thought this was so cute. You know? And that day she said that they had a fish chowder because her dad's originally from Nova Scotia, so she made food. She makes food that she knows he likes. She grew up with it. She knows what it is. So they had a fish chowder, and they had some really good bread with lots of texture and lots of butter, because they don't have dietary restrictions, and that's something that you have to check. If you're going to do this, you better check with the resident dietitian to find out if there's any special needs, because you can't be breaching that
Mm-hmm.
and jeopardize the health. But if it fits, go for it. And so anyway, then they had some pickled beets and some carrot sticks, and it was that big. And I think they shared a beer.
Wow.
Yeah,
Special night for Dad. And that's just it. You said it's a rare occurrence that you saw something like that.
I don't see it very often. And so when I asked her, she just looked at me like I was crazy because
Mm-hmm.
why wouldn't you do this? And I thought, well, I do, and I'm glad to see that you do. So so then we got talking about how she sets things up for herself so that it's easy, and it is really about organization. So she's got that hamper, and she's got utensils and plates and everything dedicated to that, so they're not dispersed in the kitchen when she
Mm-hmm.
gets home. They sit with that. So she's organized that, and she's got containers that fit into this thing. So once you've got all that, and then it's just a question of making the food and filling up those things that fit nicely in there. And if you don't want to cook, because it's not always the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have time. You guys were talking earlier about how hard it is to be a sandwich,
Yeah.
to be the center of the sandwich. And cooking doesn't always,
You're torn. You've got your
yeah,
parents on one side, and then you're trying to be the parent on the other side.
yeah, you're running
So,
your own house.
exactly.
And let's face it, you hope that your parents or the elder in your care is relatively close, but it's a commitment it's a going and coming commitment alone. So you want to make things as easy for yourself as you possibly can, because the most important thing is to be there,
And
is
that's
to show
just
up.
it. If you make it stress-free, it'll make you want to do it more. If you're just joining us right now on Boomer Life AM 650, my name is Simone Graywall, and in studio with us is Leslie Jaworski from Cori's Kitchen. And we're talking about seniors and loneliness today, and how important it can be to share a meal with someone who lives in a care facility. We just talked about a picnic, which is a really neat thing, but it's also with limited space, working with how much you can do, and you might not be able to bring in a picnic and things like that.
No.
And you said foods, it's important to kind of know what you're packing. So do some foods travel better than others? What are some things that you could bring in that's easy? Like, if you're not a cook, if it's something you just want to pick up from the store, what are some great options?
Oh, there's so much prepared food now that's available in the store, which is good, and that is what Corey's Kitchen does, by the way. They do prepared foods, which are available throughout the Lower Mainland, so it's easy to pick up. And their selection, I think, originally when I first came on, I thought of it more as feeding kids, but they're perfect for seniors, and not just the selection, but also the portion sizes are good too. So things like you would bring it hot. You could bring pot pies in, a shepherd's pie, quiche. If you're making food yourself, things you just have to think picnic. Things that transport well, like deviled eggs or sausage rolls, or anything that soup. You need a thermos. You need certain things. But if it's just impromptu, just make sure it transports well. And we've all been on a picnic. We know how that works.
Hmm.
And this is ant-free.
So Corey'sKitchen.ca and StongsMarket.com are the two websites if you want to kind of look up some of the ideas that or meals that Leslie was just talking about. Now, also, how often would you encourage someone to do this? Again, we're talking about busy schedules, but you want to be there. You've got your meals at home with your family. How much do you think would be, a good amount of time to devote to doing this? Because we know every night might not be possible to go visit a parent.
That's right. And well, I guess it depends what your routine is anyway. So I would say slide this into your routine if you can. And I should also mention that generally, if you don't want to go through all that trouble, you can share meals other ways. You can go down to the dining room with your parents, and often with just a little bit of lead time, they will set a table aside for you, and then you just eat whatever the dining room is serving. So you can do it that way, and I see that a lot, and it's a good way to visit. And it's all the dining rooms are quite pleasant now. the old days are kind of gone, thank goodness. And so they're set up a little bit like restaurants, or they can be. So depending on where you are, but it is something worth asking for. And some places will charge extra per head, some don't, but it's a good way to share a meal as well.
Especially if you have more than just yourself going down. If you have other family members, say it's a weekend coming up, Easter weekend coming up, things like that, and you want to actually try to create what you'd be doing at home with that family member if they're recently just gone into a care facility.
Yeah, that's really sad. But is the adjustment that it takes, and I think that's why even if you didn't share a meal or make a meal, there are certain things that you can bring in and leave for them. And the staff will hand out, for instance, say homemade cookies, and the staff will make sure that those are handed out at snack time or whatever the setup is. So there is a way that people can have something that's familiar. They won't have your company necessarily, but you're halfway there.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess one of the things I like is that it gives me something to do with my mom. It's just familiar. It's a routine. I look at her and I think I could do this every day if I had the time, and she certainly deserves it every day. But it's just not
in the reality of it.
And it's probably good to know that if you are sharing a meal, whether you're doing it in a dining room or you're doing it yourself, you're in for a couple of hours. By the time you set up and you eat and you clean up, this is, you've invested a couple of hours, and that's significant.
And your mom just must love it. So how often are you able to kind of do it?
3 to 4 times a week. I don't always share a meal. Sharing a meal is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I have to be really honest about it, but I think that I just feel it's important. I do think food is love. I think it's a really great expression of how you can help somebody be in a place that isn't always their home, and in a lot of cases it's the last stop. So I think whatever you can do to make things as familiar and as comfortable, I think and you have that relationship anyway, then go for it.
And that's definitely going to help with the topic we're talking about, seniors and loneliness. Tell us a little bit more about, I know we chatted a bit, Cori'sKitchen.ca, Cori's Kitchen, and Stong's Market, which is stongsmarket.com.
Well, Stong's is an old grocery store that's been around since 1931. And it serves the Dunbar community, but because it has online shopping, you can also get your groceries delivered. So you don't have to live in the neighborhood. And they've been doing online shopping for, I don't know, over 10 years. So they're real veterans at it and very good at it. And Cori's Kitchen is the sister company, and it grew out of the deli that Stong's is so famous for, and a lot of ready-made food. So it does answer that question. And it just got too big, and it had to start its own it had to go to its own space. So it has a commissary in South Burnaby, and the food is still the same great food. It's still made from scratch, all of it, and it's made in small batches. And that food is available not just at Stong's, but in about 60 different locations.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Leslie, for joining us today. It's AM 650. Again, we're talking about seniors and loneliness. And when we come back, we'll have Ernest back in studio with us to talk a little bit more about a presentation and how you can go and learn more about sharing a meal and just spending time with your loved one. We'll be back on Boomer Life, AM 650.
It's all about the baby boomer lifestyle. Boomer Life on AM 650.